You were on the huge show on Wednesday, and obviously there was trepidation, but the feeling was at that point everything was still a go for high school football as far as the original plan of August 20th. And then obviously Friday everything started happening. What changed between Wednesday and Friday?
I think the biggest thing was we surveyed our schools. We got a survey out on Thursday after schools had had 3 days of practice, and we got some good feedback on how things had been going. And then we also asked them for their input moving forward, and had over 600 schools respond within about an 18-hour period. And our schools told us by a 90-10 vote that they wanted us to move forward with the low risk sports. From all of the medical experts and with our state department health leaders, as well as the governor's office, there wasn't any heartburn in moving forward with the low risk sports from those groups. You then went to the moderate risk, and it was the same thing. It was 75-25 to move ahead with the fall season. And then when it came to the football question, it was about 60-40, and it was a lot of qualified yeses to where you then looked at the comments and other feedback that we got. And there was just a lot of heartburn. There's a lot of uncertainty. Folks have said, well, point me to the data that says it's dangerous to play football this fall. Well, of course there isn't. Just like there's no data that would point you to say, well, it's perfectly safe to play football this fall. Given the fact of, the pandemic now for us, at least in our state, is right around 8 months to where we've been impacted. There isn't that data there on either side of the ledger. So what you then have to do is listen to your health experts. Where are your biggest concerns? And far and away, that was football. I think there's also a reason why the Big Ten, the GLIAC, and the MIAA in our state all went the same way. And then the other thing, and what really changed from Wednesday to when our board met on Friday, was having that school data through the survey.
It was interesting you mentioned that not having the data on either side. That was I attempted to sort of explain your reasoning on my Twitter account, and people were saying, where's the data? And I didn't have a response to that because this is an unprecedented situation. You don't have the data. All you can go on is the fact that social distancing works. And as far as a sport, it doesn't get any less social distancing friendly than football.
Football and wrestling are the two that are impossible to play with social distancing. The parallels folks have been trying to draw as well all summer. Kids have been playing travel baseball and softball, and therefore we should have a perfectly safe and uneventful fall. Well, you don't have 9 baseball players crashing in and getting up from a pile with 9 other players on every single pitch like you certainly do in a football game. So I think there are reasons why the college level has all done what they have done, at least in our part of the country. And I don't think anybody wants to risk or roll the dice. And by the way, everybody was pushing, well, we have to have football in the fall. Well, that would not have included bands. That would not have included cheerleaders. That would not even have included spectators and parents and even moms and dads of the seniors, of which I count myself as one. So, everybody thinks that our decision not to play this fall, that it would have just been business as usual. Well, if we want to have some semblance of all of those groups that get to be part of a home football game, far and away the best chance of that is the spring, and it certainly wasn't this fall.
I think the biggest thing that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, in our business we call it the news dump, a big announcement right before the weekend, 4 o'clock, teams are in the middle of practices. A lot of the coaches we talked to were like, what? We didn't get a heads up. We're finding out these guys are on their water break, checking their cell phones. Why did that have to happen at that time on a Friday? Why couldn't you have decided then, gave the coaches a call on a Sunday night and say, hey guys, it's coming out Monday, be prepared?
So first of all, the heads up in this information age, and you've referenced Twitter already a couple times in our conversation, you get one word out to someone and it becomes public instantly. So I do think in these times, we all need to kind of get over the fact of, well, I should have had a heads up and then we could have, the world does not work that way anymore. We'll send out emails to our school athletic directors, and within 45 seconds, someone has posted that to Twitter or Instagram, and it is everywhere. So there is no perfect time. I think at the end of the day, our board met Friday, And if you're going to make that decision that we're going to postpone football, well, should we then remain quiet and let people go ahead and practice that day? Because some would say, well, that's not being fair to coaches and kids. You need to be upfront. So I'm sure there's a lot to criticize, but the one thing that we have been since last March is completely honest and transparent with everybody. And we're not going to keep it quiet and just let schools practice for another day or two, because I think that would just be unfair to everybody. So, you know what? And Mike, there wasn't a perfect time. Well, it should have been announced. There just isn't, because some practice in the morning, some practice at night. And like I say, once you share that with a few people, well, now let's just say that we wouldn't have said anybody, and now that word leaks out. Well, now you get accused of not communicating with people. So that again, just part of the world that we live in right now.
As the executive director, did you have the final say?
Our board ultimately has the final say. So we're governed by a 19-member representative council, superintendents, principals, and athletic directors, and they are our governing board. So decisions like this does come through board action.
As when that decision went down and everyone sort of left the room there in an agreement that this had to happen, I know you said you have a son. I know you said he plays sports. How tough was it to grapple with that decision and knowing that, you know, you're going to disappoint? And I'm not trying to hammer you, but it's you know you were going to disappoint a lot of people with this. How tough was it to sort of live with that and hold that, you know, to your chest?
Well, it was tough, but it was actually wasn't as tough as what it was last spring when you're telling seniors that it's over, that no more winter tournaments, no spring sports whatsoever, and that you're done. There is no closure. While I understand that folks are disappointed we're not going to be able to play this fall, we're going to give this a shot here in the spring. We're going to play football this spring, and we're going to figure out a way where it will fit and work with winter sports and spring sports. So I certainly understand the disappointment and heartburn that people have had. But we all just need to take a breath here, that we are going to play football during this school year. It's just not going to be right now this fall.
Is that a guarantee?
I don't think anything in life right now is guaranteed. If we would have moved forward with the fall, I don't think it was a guarantee that we would have gotten games played. Look at Major League Baseball and the outbreaks that they've had. What kind of an experience would it have been this fall that we now have the first game and we have a positive case and now we shut down for 2 weeks, and now there's another case to where we have to shut down again, and then the criticism would have been, well, you could have expected that this was going to happen this fall, so why didn't you move it to next spring, where at least we would have a chance to play somewhat of a consistent season. So there were arguments on both sides, Mike, and that's the reason why our board went where they did.
What was it like for you this weekend? Was your phone blowing up with a lot of, I'm sure on both sides, like, you know, good job, but I'm sure you also had a lot of, why'd you do this to me? How could you do this to me? Did you get a lot of those calls? Did you have to put your cell phone on silent? Did you have to just get away and try to just block out the negative?
No, not really, because that comes with the territory. It's really easy to be a leader when you get to make announcements about positive things, or if it's at a state championship and we're awarding trophies and those kinds of things. It's why we're talking today. You don't shy away when the topic is uncomfortable or the news is bad. So every note that comes in gets read. Every call that gets made, it gets returned, it gets to me. And you have to be upfront, you have to be out there, and you have to tell people exactly what happened that led to the decision. So certainly it's tough, but it's not been much tougher than things have been the last 5 months.
Estimate how many calls did you get over the weekend from a lot of, you know, coaches and ADs saying, you know, trying to get an explanation? How many do you think you got?
Oh, it's with email, you probably get a few hundred, and then obviously with all of the social media that's out there, but what that does though is it shows you that how important this is in all of our lives, and what a big part that sports play. And we would have loved to have played football this fall. We would love to have been the Lone Rangers, the only ones in Michigan playing football, when all of our colleges decided that wasn't the best decision to move forward in playing football this fall. So, but of course it wasn't meant to be. And there was, again, we would have had stops and delays, and we go 2 weeks without games, and then maybe we play and maybe we don't. And then the criticism would have been, well, you mean that you couldn't have foreseen that this was going to happen? So I understand the criticism, but we're going to look forward to next spring.
Two last questions. One was from a Twitter user. Again, we use Twitter here. But essentially they said, like the phrase "Who guards the guardians?" And they were saying like it's us on the media to sort of keep at you guys to what's the plan and to demand a plan for spring. Have you guys decided on started discussing what the plan is for spring? How are you going to make this happen?
So we've actually been working on this plan since last April. And we've right now got it probably down to 3 different options. We're going to meet with our board again on Wednesday. We're now going to show them what those options would be, where football is going to fit. It's going to be sometime in that March, April into May window. We're going to try and figure out how to do that with as least disruption as possible to winter, and then obviously with spring. Those are the kids that lost an entire season last year. And we've got 3 plans that I think, depending on the part of your state that you're in and really what your priorities are, I think there's some plans there that, again, it's not going to be perfect. If folks are wanting perfect right now, just like the plans in starting the school year from different districts. You find me a school district where all the parents are completely behind the way that we're starting the academic year, and that works for us. But no, we've got plans in place, and those will go to our board Wednesday, and we'll move forward from there.
Can I press forward and ask you what those 3 plans are?
Well, I think most of them begin practice in March, with then a shortened regular season schedule, and then some sort of a tournament playoff postseason experience, which it may be a case of everybody gets in. It could even be more divisions than what we currently have now, because the challenge with football, it's different than basketball. You can't play 3 games in a week. You can't play a doubleheader on Saturday and really move through a tournament progression. It has to be 1 week at a time. So to balance the regular season, to balance a postseason, and then also looking at the winter and the spring, we got to find just the right number that will hopefully satisfy all those things.
Winter sports right now still on?
They are.
They are. As far as the other sports, the August 20th deadline still looms in terms of soccer and volleyball. Where do those stand right now in terms of how likely do you think these are to go on?
Well, as we sit here today, everything that we are getting from our state health department officials as well as the governor's office is to proceed. What we're meeting on Wednesday, again, prior to the 20th, is what those competition schedules will look like. Part of, in many parts of our state, the indoor facilities of indoor gyms and pools, we've been told is going to be addressed this week by the governor's office. So obviously, when those facilities open and when that means for competition schedules, those will be hand in hand. And then also finalizing the date in which soccer teams can begin to participate. But all of those sports being in the moderate and low risk categories, again, with the medical input that we've been getting, it's to move forward.
I'm assuming no fans though, right?
It could be different based on different parts of the state. So depending what region you're in, obviously the crowds, for example, in soccer are a little bit different than a Friday night football game. Each facility is going to be a little bit different. And then obviously the number of spectators indoors and outdoors. We have relaxed all of our streaming rules to where those that want to be able to see the action will be able to do so, whether it's Facebook Live, whether it's school streaming on their own. So certainly those factors are part of the math as well.
And lastly, and this I promise is the final question, there have been a lot of talk of petitions popping up and people gaining steam trying to, find a way to get themselves heard. Is there any way a petition could change anyone's mind about this, and there's still a chance that we could play football?
Well, I guess this decision was not made on a whim in taking the temperature of what the public was. As I said, this was based on input from our schools. That was the way that we heard from our schools, superintendents, principals, athletic directors, as well as our coaches. And then the other thing that we're getting is input and direction from the governor's office and our state health department officials. So all of that went into the decision to not to play. And I'm not sure that how a petition drive would change those realities that we were all given last week.
Understood. Mark, thanks so much for your time. Greatly appreciated. Thank you.